time, what you see is very different from what you see today. Not otaku kind of like putting together their computers or something. What you see is families. Yes, let's go down there, Kojimachi Denki or something. It's a very different image you see in Akihabara at that time. Akihabara was really kind of a showcase for the best of Japan, best and brightest. And it became known as the Electric Town, which is the name that still sticks with it today. Okay. So skip. Basically what happened, now to the matter of the day, why are otaku in Akihabara to begin with? Why are these people even there? Why are we talking about Akihabara and otaku? In the 1970s, there was the oil shocks, right? 1973, things like that. The economy slows down a little bit, and a lot of box stores began to appear around Tokyo, suburbs, commuter hubs, things like that. So Akihabara no longer was able to kind of corner the electronics market. So what they did is they switched over to personal computers, especially kind of do-it-yourself kits to build your own computer. The TK80, those of you who are aware of it, the first kind of like build-it-yourself computer kit was on display there in Akihabara. The top floor of the Radio Kaikon used to be an NEC showroom where they would show you how to build TK80 computers. They still have a placard that marks the arrival of the TK80 system in Akihabara, so it was a big part of it. And it became kind of the personal computer town. If you think about 1970s, right, computers, who was into computers in the 1970s? Let's see, specialists, hobbyists, not kids, not families. Otaku, right? So you got young men with free time, a little bit of money, kind of a bourgeoisie, technical elite who are coming down to Akihabara. The families get chased away because they're kind of gross, and what happens is you end up with a otaku enclave. And it got worse, actually, in the 1980s, as you know, because that's when otaku really kind of took off. There was lots of media coming out. There was lots of new things like Gundam, Macross, immersive series that had merchandise components to them and stuff like that. So the subculture was taking off and looking for kind of a place to gather, a place to belong. And Akihabara was, to some extent, one of those places. Not entirely, because Akihabara was still kind of a mainstream consumer district, and it was actually pretty hard to find stores for rent there. So in the 1980s, we have a booming otaku media culture that is not connected to Akihabara. They're going there, but they're going there to buy technological components, parts of computers, things like that. So actually, the media and technology are a little bit separated. This changes in the 1990s, right, as the recession happens. When the recession happens in Japan, actually it's called the bursting of the bubble, right, the economic bubble. After that, land prices just plummeted in Akihabara. It's amazing, if you look at the numbers. Right now, the land price is about maybe 90% of what it was back in the 1980s. So a huge drop in the 1990s happening in Akihabara. All the stores were leaving, and all these kind of abandoned rooms were there in Akihabara. So people who were kind of eyeing Akihabara, people in Shibuya, Ikebukuro, Nakano, people who had kind of Kichijoji, all these areas used to be associated with pop culture, garage kits, anime, manga, things like that. All these people looked to Akihabara and they said, we have our chance to get in here. So slowly they started to open stores there. 1993, Toraman Ana, which is a doujinshi store, amateur comic book store, opened a store in Akihabara. And so that was kind of the first inkling of what was to come. The real kind of watershed comes in 1997 when Kyoto, which is a famous model maker from Osaka, they used to have a store in Shibuya, where all kind of like the hip American comic book culture. I'm sorry I said that, American hip comic book culture. It used to be very hip in Tokyo, so the hip American comic book culture kind of pushed away the otaku because of this incident, right? Miyazaki Tsutomu, if you know him, he's actually executed last year. He's the so-called otaku murderer. He brutalized 4 little girls. He ate pieces of their body and violated them and stuff like that. So he was considered to be an otaku. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. One thing that he surely was a sociopath. He had about 6,000 videotapes in his room, so people assumed that he was kind of the pinnacle of otaku culture. He had all these videotapes, he had all this media and technology in his room. He was shut off, So he kind of became this image of this darkness in the otaku culture. Whether he was or wasn't, I'm not even going to go into that today. What I will say is he did not even know what the word meant. When he was arrested, the police asked him, "Are you an otaku?" And he said, "What are you talking about? I have no idea what you mean." So it's possible that that term was just retroactively applied to him. But in any case, he was a representative of a new media culture. That new media culture was not popular. So there was kind of a push-pull going on. There was a pull into Akihabara with all this open space and all this technological culture. And there was a push away from other areas in Tokyo, especially for young men. If you look at the case of Ikebukuro, you used to have guys and girls together, right? You have Animate there, you have Mandarake there, you have K-Books. The original K-Books was in the north part of Tokyo. They moved to Ikebukuro. So Animate and K-Books were in Ikebukuro. So why are only girls there? The reason why is because they got pushed out of Ikebukuro. The guys got pushed out of Ikebukuro in the 1990s, and they went to Akihabara. So now you have kind of this gender segregation. Girls in Ikebukuro, guys in Akihabara. It's a very strange thing if you think about it. Anyway, so people started to move into Akihabara, guys, because of the push-pull effect. Kyoto moved from Shibuya to Akihabara, which kind of was that big spark. Ah, we have a store right in the Radio Kaikon, 4th floor, still there today. A huge Ayanami Ray figure right out the front. It's kind of like this flashpoint that brings people together. And don't forget also that Neon Genesis Evangelion, a hugely popular TV anime, was in reruns all throughout the late 1990s. So a new generation of otaku were being kind of initiated by this series. And they also had Ayanami Rei as the first kind of real character goods character, right? There's all these figures being sold for her. And so Kyoto moving to Akihabara was perfect, because you have the technology, you have the media, you have the character, and you have the toy maker all in the same place. So what happened is Kyoto started making bank. I mean, they were making money hand over fist. Now the stores said, hey, we should do that too. And so they moved there in the late 1990s, and you had basically an otaku heaven from about 1997. It doesn't always look that way, especially not today, but believe me, there was a time when people say Akihabara was a sanctuary for all the otaku of the world. People who had no other place to go would go there. So there was also in the 2000s something that I'm sure you're aware of, kind of a global otaku renaissance, kind of otaku and Akihabara as cool Japan. This is almost a contradiction in words, right? Otaku as cool, otaku as Japanese, otaku as mainstream. But there was a time when they were, actually, and I'll show that to you later on in the presentation. Subculture was repositioned as pop culture, and the stage for this was Akihabara. So there's a lot of friction going on the streets of Akihabara. I'll give you a few examples. In 2005, Yodobashi Camera opened up a huge box store in Akihabara. Akihabara always used to be a place that people said there will be no tract development. We have fragmentary land ownership, private land ownership, niche stores. That's what makes us special. That's why we survived the 1990s. What's this then? This is part of the redevelopment plan going on in Akihabara. The Tsukuba Express line, the newest train line in the area, a fast commuter line from Ibaraki Prefecture to Tokyo. So you've got white-collar families, landowners, with kids, with jobs coming through Akihabara. It's a whole new element coming into the east side of Akihabara. And Densho Toko, which I'll talk about more later. Another example, in 2005, the Crown Prince visited Akihabara. He liked it, since it's a cool place. In 2006, the former Prime Minister Asotaro visited Akihabara. He said, I like it too, just like the Crown Prince, cool place. And he publicly praised Akihabara and otaku creativity. At one point, he actually did say that otaku will be the saviors of Japanese contents industry. So you can see very clearly how Akihabara became a showcase of two things, contents and high technology. It has basically a history of that. So it's not surprising that they would position Akihabara as the stage of cool Japan.